Alrighty, y'all. Hello. We're talking about European habits that helped this American lose 20 pounds effortlessly. Sounds very interesting to me, although I can kind of vouch for this. I have lost more than that since, 5 months ago or so, effortlessly as well. Now, I'm about to ramp it up because it's warming up out and, more exercise and maybe being slightly more strict with what I eat, but just eating from a European grocery store here in the U.S. with all imported goods has done wonders for me. So I will be interested to see what this is like. This is from Coach Viva. This will be linked in the description down below so you can watch the whole thing uninterrupted and browse their channel. Let's go ahead and dive into this.
Europeans eat bread, drink wine, and don't obsess over the gym. Yet half of Europe is thinner than the fittest U.S. state.
That's crazy. So Colorado is always famous for being the most fit U.S. state. And look at all of these countries that outrank it. I apologize. I am still getting over a cough. But yeah, that's pretty crazy, if I do say so. Of course, all the red is almost all U.S. states, and they're way far behind.
The even more surprising part, most of these countries aren't even following the famous Mediterranean diet, which the U.S. media promotes endlessly as the ultimate healthy diet. Neither do Europeans hit the gym more often than Americans. Clearly, something bigger than diet or exercise is going on. Or rather, something weirder. These habits get accidentally adopted by Americans who move to Europe, causing them to lose weight without even realizing how.
I drank copious amounts of wine and beer, and without really keeping track of my weight, one day I decided to take a photo and see how it compared with my US days, and the results were shocking.
These habits don't...
This is what I admire about hearing stories about people living in European countries. It's quite normal, from what I've heard, to have a glass of wine at lunch or even some beer, right? You guys get to have it a lot more often. I don't ever drink wine or beer. I drink beer sometimes on the weekends. I'll have a couple. But that's very rare recently, at least over the winter. To put it simply, I know you guys have the better food, right? We've said that a million times. I'd love to have some great food and have some beer and still be in good shape. Of course, everyone's different, and, there's fit people both here and there. There's, not thin people both here and there. But generally, you're better off in European countries for this type of thing, and it is just really cool to see and admirable and also frustrating
just
for
cause
us.
Weight loss. They've caused what appears to be reverse aging in Americans after they moved to Europe.
That's
Watch out,
crazy.
Brian Johnson. I lost weight while living in the U.S. My full-time job is coaching others to lose weight, and I've lived in Europe for the past 2 years. And
That's
I can
amazing.
tell you, there's one root habit shaping this reality. The eating and walking habits people fixate on, they're just symptoms. This is why even if the Mediterranean diet or Norwegian diet or whatever is mass adopted in the US, it won't make a difference because you can't fix something by mimicking the symptoms. You need...
I like that she's saying this. This is the first time I've ever seen this explained. This is going to be a good video. Yeah, you see everything here plastered with like this diet, that diet. A lot of times it doesn't end up working. And say magically, which of course would never happen. How stubborn Americans could be, but say magically, 300 million plus Americans started eating the Mediterranean diet for an extended period of time. There might be some results, but it's not going to fix things here. It goes deeper than that. I'd like to see what she says.
To start at the root. And you guessed it, the root lies in the quirks Americans notice in Europe. Put on your detective hat. Can you spot the common thread in these quirky US versus Europe stories? When I first got to Portugal, I'd walk around with a drink in hand, sometimes even having my lunch on the go. I felt so productive, knocking out 2 tasks at the same time. But I noticed people kept giving me weird looks.
I bet.
Turns out nobody in Europe walks and eats. Meals last 1.5 to 3 hours, even during workdays. Not because they're eating more, but because they're pacing themselves for conversation. Same thing with drinks. In Seattle, nights out meant slamming drinks. In Europe, people nurse their drinks for hours. The goal isn't to drink, it's to talk. And it's not just food and drinks. This slow, steady mindset applies to everything, including work. We've all heard Europeans get 6 weeks of vacation. True,
yeah.
But it's more than just about vacations. It's a daily thing. Whenever I meet new people in Europe, nobody ever asks me, what do you do? In the US, that's the first thing people want to know because everyone in the US.
Literally after your name. Get the name out of the way. Do you guys know anyone in common? And then, so what do you do? It's like so weird how casual it is. Another thing I admire so greatly is that the social aspect, right? That's diminishing. It exists here, and some people keep it alive, which is great. At least in my circle, it's diminished, and it's kind of a shame, right? Like, people need to slow down and just be social and see how each other's doing. And, you know, don't pound the beers and stuff. Like, enjoy it, right? Slow down. I think that would help a lot of things, right? And don't eat fast. Don't eat fast and ask for more, and then your body can't tell you in time that you're actually full, right? That's another thing that has always added weight to average Americans is eating too fast, and then you have a second plate, and then your body signals you like, holy smokes, I am overstuffed, when you really would have been full after the first plate. But that whole eating fast, you shoved more in, and then now you don't feel good, and you're going to gain weight, right? So
feels like they're in a high-stakes Shondaland TV drama, guzzling coffee and burning both ends of the candle. In Europe, work is just one part of life, like going to a cafe. There's no urgency, no drama.
I admire that, man.
Is go big or go home, a life of extremes. That's why the US is increasingly split into two classes of people. Those who are overweight and those who are highly trained. The middle class, people who are moderately fit and eat well without obsessing, is disappearing.
We do have tons of fit athletes and ripped people, right? Jacked, right? And of course, we have an obesity problem. So it's like weird, right? It's like we do have fit people, but they're super fit. They're super like bodybuilder, right? So at the same time, it's kind of a different weird issue, right? They're obsessed with fitness and eating tons of protein and calories and tons of supplements. Just normal kind of people. It's like are the most rare type. Like normal, thin, in decent shape people. It's like finding a unicorn. It's kind of weird how that is.
The change we must start with isn't food or exercise. It's shifting our mindset from dramatic, high-stakes sprints to steady, consistent marches.
Okay.
Meaning you commit to no longer pendulum swinging between being on a diet or completely off the rails.
Yeah,
meal prepping with military precision or binging on takeout when life gets busy, then doing hardcore workouts as punishment for the binge.
Yeah.
Instead, you do what Europeans do. They don't diet. They don't start and stop. They just exist in a steady rhythm. And that's the shift that changed everything for me. What this means is following one simple rule. I can only change 1 to 3 habits max at a time. The change must be a one-step shift from my current habits. And I do not change or add habits until my fat loss has been stuck for 1 month straight. This is the weight loss equivalent of steady, consistent marches. No overdoing, no underdoing. So what are these 1 to 3 habit changes? Nutrition is 80% of weight loss, and it is the biggest difference in how Europeans approach health compared to Americans. Like, I have many friends here in Europe who have lost weight, and when I ask them what they did, none bring up keto, intermittent fasting, or any diet. This was surprising to me because in the US, the first thing anyone losing weight credits is some sort of diet. So
everything is about, oh, I did this fast I followed from this podcast, or I did this keto diet, or this diet, that diet, right? There's like an obsession with slapping these famous, trendy names and lifestyles onto things, and that's what I did, right? That's what I'm going to do, and I'm going to lose weight and get jacked or whatever. She's definitely right on that. And I think that's part of the problem. Whereas maybe it's not that hard, right? Like, let's look at it simply. Just a healthy lifestyle and everything in moderation. I really like the point about like, oh, I'm going to go really hard. I'm going to eat very strict. I'm going to work out with these crazy high intensity workouts. But then, you know, when I have those cravings, I'll have 1 day a week where I'll go crazy and I'll eat donuts and pizza and blah, blah, blah. You know, that's a very weird way to approach things as well, right? How about just eat normal? If you want pizza, have a slice of pizza. That's it, right? Don't eat the whole pizza. And you can kind of eat a good variety of things as long as you eat in moderation. I have noticed that. Also portions, right? I've noticed shopping at the European store, portions are smaller. But you know what? And like little snacks are lighter. They're crispy and light, right? They're not heavy. So like the lightness, the smaller portion sizes, it's things that I like. I found that I don't need anymore. So why would I get the big jumbo XL snack that the American size has? It's usually always not needed.
So what did my European friends eat to lose weight? Starting at the root for nutrition, the why or mindset, is if you love food, eat like you love food. Europeans eat real butter, full-fat cheese, and croissants without guilt. They don't eat with a restrictive mentality where even as you're digging into that croissant, every bite is taken with guilt. Because guess what happens when you eat with guilt? You don't enjoy it. You're never satisfied, so you keep eating more and more, chasing satisfaction, which ironically becomes harder and harder to achieve because the more you eat, the worse you're feeling. You're not actually loving food. Compare that to if you eat that croissant without guilt. You're actually going to feel satisfied. So does this mean you eat whatever you want? Yes and no. From the why flows the what you eat. Because if you love food, eat real food that nourishes your body. On average, 14% of Europeans' diet comes from ultra-processed foods, compared to 60% in the US. But how do we apply the one-step shift rule to this? At 60% to 14% is a huge change. Most junk and sweets we eat tend to be out of cravings, not hunger. So if you reduce the number of times we give into cravings, the amount of junk we eat will also go down. Sure, you can resist at the start, but you know the novelty will wear off till you give more and more into your cravings. This is where the when part comes in from the Europeans. By and large, they don't snack. They tend to eat at set meal times and do mini intermittent fasting of 3 to 4 hours in between meal times. This in turn reduces the chances of giving into cravings.
Now that's a funny way to word it. Mini intermittent fasting. I guess that's one way you could say it. I wouldn't really call the time between meals fasting, like intermittent fasting. I think that's just like normal days, right? I like this setup: breakfast, brunch, lunch, dinner. That's very reasonable. You could totally be in shape while eating those, and you do get a break in between each meal. And honestly, the breaks aren't even long, so it's not like you have to wait 8 hours to eat or something. So I think these are really reasonable and something to shoot for. And I don't know if I agree that this is like intermittent fasting, but
fasting of 3 to 4 hours in between meal times. This in turn reduces the chances of giving into cravings because you're no longer making a decision every time an urge to eat strikes you. Remember, willpower drains as the day goes on, so the fewer times you have to make a decision, the better. But then what if at the meal times you binge so hard that you might as well have eaten junk throughout the day? That's where the last how part of European eating comes in. At your meals, prioritize having 1 palm-sized lean protein, 1 fistful of vegetables, and 1 cup of water first. After that, you can eat whatever you want without guilt. In fact, remember that you must eat without guilt. And set a timer to make this meal last at least 20 minutes without screens. Baby steps toward the 1 to 2 hour meals of the Europeans. But nutrition is not the only thing that helps thin Europeans. We all know that moving our bodies can motivate us to eat better. But we also know that hardcore exercising can derail weight loss by making you hungrier, which then causes you to eat too much or the wrong things.
Yeah, that's
thin
true.
Europeans have found the sweet spot between exercising and hunger. This again starts with the root, the why or mindset behind movement for thin Europeans. Here's a good story to show the difference. I used to row crew in Seattle, and so when I saw an 8 in the Taser River, it caught my attention. But what really stood out to me was it was a mixed boat with men and women. In the US, it's always all men or all women boats. I commented on this to my friend who said, that's because it's actually recreational here. I felt my understanding shift on its axis. In the US, even when things are tagged as recreational, they actually aren't. The crew boats in the US were never mixed because it was still a competition. This mindset bleeds into everything. Hobbies have to be monetized. Workouts have to be optimized. But in Europe, it's okay to be bad at a hobby. You don't have to constantly level up. You just do it because it's fun or part of your day. And that's why Europeans move more than Americans without even realizing it. But how do you shift from a clinical approach to exercise to a fun one? There are 2 things you do. The first is to integrate movement into your daily life in 3 ways. Instead of parking close to your building entrance, park far away and walk. Instead of taking the elevator,
I do that.
take the stairs.
I walk
Drive to a
a
park
long
close
way.
to you.
I don't bother parking close all the time.
you and go for a walk as many times a week as you can fit. And the second thing to do is to experiment with trying out sports you think you'd enjoy and do them with the mindset of not getting better at them, but just enjoying them.
I'd like to try out a lot of sports from different countries. That would be fun.
Optimize for fun, not performance.
All right, so let's look at the comments as well. The first one is literally what I said. The fact she called not eating between meals intermittent fasting blew my mind. Yeah. Do not recognize this Europe you are describing. A few things I can remember from visiting America, taking a car everywhere. Even if it is just 100 or 200 meters trip, much bigger portion sizes, much more added sugar and chemicals. Yeah, these are all valid points as well. That just add up. They really add up here. You get bloated a lot here. I don't know. I think a lot of things can happen at different angles for people, but it all ends up to like this rolling effect where it's just hard for a lot of people to get going on being fit and thin here. It is just kind of a shame. It's just because it's so car dependent. So you have to really make an effort to get exercise and walk. And, you know, a lot of good quality foods and healthier foods are harder to find, and they're a lot more expensive here in the U.S. And the only things that are easy to find and cheap are crappy foods. All right, so some people aren't agreeing with this. I would love to hear your comments. That's fair. It's always funny when Americans refer to us as Europeans as if we were a nation. Yeah, I mean, that's just how videos work. There's not much you can do about that. You can't literally go through every country and say every country name. No one would watch. Europeans as a whole, I think, have, like, of course, there's big diversity and stuff. And, you know, Serbia is a lot different than Scotland. But I think Europeans as a whole have a little more in common with each other than they would with, you know, an American from Oklahoma or something. Yep, I just whacked my hand on the desk. Wow, I guess that's all for today. No, this is kind of a complex topic, but it's always interesting to look at. I thought it was decent. I mean, she made a lot of points I haven't seen in other videos like this, and I think there is a lot of root issues that the U.S. has that, you know, other countries do differently. And, you know, typically Europeans do walk more. They do spend more time. Like meals are a little more of a social thing. And even if they're not, I feel like they're more relaxed and people take their time and they don't eat as much, you know, the crazy portions, and food is better quality. So it's treated with just this different kind of respect and kind of importance, I guess, throughout the day. Again, it's one of those things that's different for everyone, and there's always going to be exceptions, and it's just one of those, I don't know, it's very hard to define, but I feel like as an American looking at European habits, it can help. And as Europeans, if they disagree, that's totally fine. You know, everyone has different perspectives on things. I will say, you know, for what it's worth, I mean, I'm the one in my body after all. I have slimmed down with very little effort just by changing up what I eat, and a lot of it being eating at home like we've always done, but with European ingredients. I don't know. It's kind of cool. People have noticed in my videos. I've gotten comments on it in previous videos, and I don't know. I think that's awesome. So I give the European imports we eat credit. Anyway, I love trying to dive into this stuff and learn a little bit. I hope you did too. I really do appreciate you watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker. Until next time, y'all. Catch you later.